Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. I rise to speak in support of the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation Amendment, sunsetting of special powers relating to terrorism offences Bill 2019. Government, Mr. Acting Deputy President, has three key roles: protecting life, protecting property and protecting freedom. And as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, we will make sure that those roles are fulfilled. The government seeks to extend in this bill the provisions for 12 months already in place to be able to detain and interview people. The underlying position is to keep our people safe. And as servants to the people of Queensland and Australia, we need to keep people safe. The people that we and the government want to protect us from are extremists, including extremist Islamists who do not have respect for life. They are barbarians. We aim to protect, and the bill aims to protect, the security of Australian citizens because there is primacy in border security. Border security is one of the most fundamental responsibilities of a federal government. Australia had tight borders thanks to Senator Hanson's strong position on border protection back in the 90s. She forced the Howard government to listen to the will of the people, and the Howard government, Liberal government, stood up. Then Labor Prime Minister Kevin Rudd weakened border security, and that led, Mr. Acting Deputy President, to the deaths of over 1,000 illegal boat people, including innocent women and children. In 2016, Senator Hanson and I were given a presentation by Mr. Dutton's office on what had been accomplished under the Abbott government border protection measures, and it was truly amazing. We saw that the number of boats had plummeted to zero, and more importantly, well, as importantly I should say, the number of genuine refugees had increased, because instead of illegal immigrants taking the place of genuine humanitarian refugees, we had the opportunity to bring in genuine humanitarian refugees. Here are some statistics, Mr. Acting Deputy President, that show that terrorism is a clear and real threat to Australians and their way of life. Since 2001, there have been 73 Australians convicted of terrorism-related offences. 50 are currently in jail. About 100 Australian terrorists have died in the Middle East fighting for ISIS. They're not our friends, they're our enemies. They're the enemies of freedom, the enemies of civilization. We've had 7 attacks in this country, terrorist attacks, and at least 16 major counter-terrorism disruption operations in response to the planning of potential attacks in our country. 16 plus 7. The figures are terrifying in light of the thousands of deaths of Australians that could have occurred. And Mr. Acting Deputy President, one of the scariest statistics is that our national terrorism threat level is at probable. Probable. A major terrorism attack in this country. And I want to honour, on behalf of One Nation and the people of Queensland, the fine, vigilant people in our border security and counter-terrorism forces. But they need all the help they can get. They need that help to get access to some of the potential threats. But indeed, what we in Parliament and Senator Keneally herself are protected daily in this building and elsewhere is people such as our security forces in this country. Not just the people we see, not just the people carrying guns, not just the people who are willing to put their life on the line, but the people behind the scenes, in the back rooms, doing counter-terrorism operations. Mr. Acting Deputy President, I want to diverge slightly and come back to this point. The Labor Party in the days when it stood for Australia, and was the Labor Party, was strong on border protection, very strong on border protection. Ever since it started mimicking the leftovers known as the Greens, it has become the Clayton's Labor parties. As the UN's useful idiots, the leftovers known as the Greens want to end Australian sovereignty. That is a goal that involves ending border security, as is already seen in the European Union, which is not really a union, where sensible leaders of free nations are now standing up across Europe European continent and rejecting the European Union's commissars, or indeed leaving the European Union. So I now want to put some of Labor's actions in perspective. Labor's constitution has long stated, and I'll quote, "The Australian Labor Party is a democratic socialist party and has the objective of democratic socialisation of industry, production, distribution and exchange to the extent necessary to eliminate exploitation or other antisocial features in these fields." Sounds admirable. But I detest socialism because it has a zero success rate for almost 150 years. And I still honour the legacy of the original Labor Party members who were genuinely doing what they thought best in the interests of our country. Deluded maybe, but noble in intent. And they had many achievements driven with that intent to look after our country and to maintain our sovereignty and to provide governance. I think of the Snowy Mountain scheme. I think of the fairness that the Labor Party, the old Labor Party, brought in. But Mr. Acting Deputy President, today's Labor is a far cry from the noble Labor of old. Today's Labor is opportunistic, dishonest and deceitful. And while there are honourable senators in this place, in the Labor Party, the fact is that the party is under the rule of powerful backroom party power brokers whose goal is personal power and control. Socialism extends to control. It always leads to control, always. And we can see it in the Labor Party, we can see it in the Greens. Do I need to remind anyone of Hitler, Stalin and Mao? And now we see Senator Keneally emulating these control freaks, these mass murderers, and wanting to ban a Muslim who speaks against radical Islam. She wants to stop the CPAC conference about to be held in Sydney next week, a festival of freedom, a festival of freedom. But the Labor Party wants to ban it. I understand these are the words. Reportedly, the Labor Party has called on the Morrison government to deny Mr Kassam a visa, and I'll come back to Mr Kassam in a minute, after he called the Quran fundamentally evil. Should we, Mr Acting Deputy President, ban Labor conferences because their platform says they are still socialist? Should union meetings be called or banned because they are filled with old-time communists? We say no. We say let the union meetings continue. We say let Labor Party conferences continue because One Nation and most Australians support and value freedom of expression. Yet under Labor's logic, socialist conferences and parties and unionists would be banned because socialism leads to control and mass murder. This is not right.
Resume your seat, Senator Roberts. Point of order, Senator Freaky.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. My point of order is for you to ask Senator Roberts to withdraw his comments that he made recently, which implied that Senator Keneally emulated a mass murderer. I think that's completely unparliamentary.
Senator Roberts, I'd just ask that you reflect on your contribution in the chamber in this particular matter, and it may assist the chair actually if you were to withdraw the questions, the allegations which have been made against Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I had no intention of implying in any way that Senator Keneally wants to be a mass murderer. My intention was purely to show that she wants to control freedom in this country, which is something that the mass murderers did. The mass murderers are known for murdering tens of millions of people, but their number one fundamental activity was to suppress freedom. And that is what Senator Keneally is doing, and I'll go on to explain that. So I hope that clarifies, Mr Acting Deputy President. As it is right now...
Senator Roberts, you have the call.
Thank you. As it is, the socialist left is taking over our institutions, our public service, our universities, non-government organisations, and are destroying freedoms using the tactics of Saul Alinsky. I note the irony that the Jewish lobby provides funds to set up the CPAC. Yet opponents of CPAC, opponents of freedom, opponents of free speech, call CPAC anti-Semitic. That shows me they have no argument, no logic, no data. They cannot respond, so they label and they blame. And that is something that I've discussed elsewhere. What happens is we create, in the left in this country, they create a victim. They create a problem. Then they create opponents and perpetrators. Then they want to attribute blame. And then, to avoid argument and to suppress speech, they label and blame and they hide behind political correctness. That's the new form of control. It is no longer jackboots, rifles and tanks. It is labels, smears and innuendo. And when opponents resort to name-calling, racist or anti-Semitic, it confirms they lack data and a logical, coherent argument. Now, I'm not the only one calling Senator Keneally to account. Donald Trump Jr. has blasted Senator Keneally for wanting to ban Raheem Kassam, who is the editor of Breitbart, the editor-in-chief, to keep him from Australia. Yes, some of Kassam's comments are questionable, yet he is merely using the tactics of the left. Senator Cormann spoke against Kassam, yet agreed on freedom of speech. So I want to commend CPAC next week and encourage people to attend. I want to applaud Andrew Cooper and Liberty Works for organising the conference. And while they thank Senator Keneally for her advertising, her free advertising, I say it is a blight on Labor and our Senate and our Parliament. One Nation and I support freedom, and therefore we support this bill, Mr. Acting Deputy President, because it protects life and protects freedom. Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President.
Minister.